I've gotten a lot of comments from people on my videos telling me that many of you think that I don't want you to eat anything, and then I'm telling you that just about all foods trigger IBS attacks. And it can certainly feel that way now, but once you get things sorted out, it won't be that way. However, I haven't done a very good job of telling you why that is. So I'm going to do a better job here today of explaining the difference between the foods that trigger IBS attacks and what causes IBS. Now, once you have IBS, lots of foods can then trigger an IBS attack, but the things that caused your IBS are different and simpler than the things that are now triggering your IBS attack. Let me give you an example. Coffee is frequently cited as a trigger for IBS, and lots of places will tell you to avoid coffee if you have IBS. Coffee can be a digestive irritant, and if your digestive system is already compromised by something else, then coffee is more likely to bother you, and you might find that it causes you digestive problems. But coffee is hardly ever the cause of your IBS, and I very rarely tell my patients to avoid coffee, and that's coming from me, someone who doesn't even drink coffee. Now, why don't I tell people to avoid it? Because it's not what we want our patients to focus on. We want you to focus on why you are susceptible to IBS attacks, which we help you sort out, not by avoiding everything that could potentially trigger an IBS attack. Now, once you get the kind of care that allows you to focus on what is making you susceptible to IBS flare-ups and attacks, then you can heal up and get better. And you don't have to avoid things like coffee, because coffee will no longer cause your IBS to flare up. Why not? Because you won't have IBS anymore. Now, I'll keep explaining this because it's a little confusing. But when this happens, when you get to the cause, there are bigger fish to fry, so to speak, than avoiding coffee. Now, speaking of frying things, the same issue is true, for example, with greasy or fried food, right? You hear about avoiding that, and it can certainly trigger your IBS and trigger an attack, but rarely is it the cause of your IBS. Now, greasy or fried food is simply hard to digest when your digestive system is already compromised. So we don't tell patients to avoid that either, even though you hear a lot about avoiding greasy or fried foods when you're learning about things that can cause your IBS to flare up. They can irritate you and trigger an IBS attack, but they usually aren't the underlying cause of your IBS. So I encourage you to make a clear distinction between something that triggers an IBS flare-up or an attack and the true underlying cause of your IBS. All right, so that begs the next question, right? What causes IBS? And I said earlier that the cause is simpler and easier to define. And that is true once you figure out what the cause is. But finding the cause isn't necessarily simple. So for example, right, what's the most common treatment right now for IBS? It's the low FODMAP diet. And that might give you some relief, but it's not addressing the cause of your IBS. It's focusing on trigger foods, not causes. You didn't suddenly become susceptible to high FODMAP foods. The reason that you have problems with high FODMAP foods is the same reason you have problems with spicy foods or greasy food or caffeine. It's because you haven't found the cause of your IBS yet. Now, there are just as many causes for IBS as there seemingly are triggers for IBS attacks. And so although the information on triggers for IBS attacks is fairly common, right? It's fairly generic from one person to the next. The underlying causes for what is making your digestive tract susceptible to all of those triggers, that's very different from person to person. That's why you can't just watch a video and figure out the underlying cause of your IBS. And it's why the information online is so generic and won't cure your problem. And why you're still looking for answers, because it's a lot easier to make general assumptions about what is going to trigger your IBS to flare up than it is to figure out what is really causing you to have IBS in the first place. because the causes are things that have made your digestive tract weak. The causes, it made your digestive tract compromised, right? And they've made all of those triggers, made you susceptible to all of those triggers that you read about. It's why you can't tolerate things like spicy foods or greasy foods or coffee, etc. You know, this long list. But it's why other people can, because they don't have that underlying cause. They don't have that underlying IBS. All right, is this still a little confusing? And it can get really confusing trying to understand the difference between a trigger for an IBS attack and the cause for IBS. And this happens even to doctors, because most doctors don't really understand this. Even gastroenterologists don't really appreciate this and aren't taught the difference in medical school. And that's why they give everyone the same generic approach, and why it isn't very successful for a lot of people. But it's also why I created the IBS Treatment Center, because it's a specialty that requires special expertise. And that's why you need an IBS specialist, because a true IBS specialist is going to help you peel back the layers of the condition until you get to the core cause. And then you will know exactly what is causing your IBS, and then you can truly heal. And that's a lot more productive than avoiding all of the possible triggers that can cause your IBS attacks, because once you heal, those other things will no longer be triggers. And we know that because we see it every day here at the IBS Treatment Center. Now, if you'd like more help figuring out your IBS, give us a call now at 206-264-1111. We work with people all over the US and the world via telemedicine, and we'd love to work with you too. And if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more insight into your digestive health. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful day.